What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. On the road, Tim Legler. Some interesting games, some not so interesting games. Actually, two interesting games, one not so interesting game to get to today, Legs. How you doing on this Friday?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just in beautiful sunny Orlando, Florida, getting ready for this Magic Celtics game tonight. But really interesting night last night with the three games that we had. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about each of them.
All three of the series appear now to have shifted to where we kind of feel like we know where they're going. Is that the case or not? We're going to talk about that. We have some quick hitters for you. We will touch on all three games, and we'll get you ready for a very good Friday slate. But we're going to start with some layup lines to get loose here. Some layup lines. The first one, Vegas was not right this time, Legs. We got a surprise. Evan Mobley wins Defensive Player of the Year. He had 35 first-place votes, so this one was very split. Dyson Daniels comes in second, Draymond Green third. Draymond Green was the betting favorite. So Vegas got one wrong, and it is Evan Mobley. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I'm good with it. I mean, clearly you get down to a handful of candidates. It's not like there definitely is a right answer to any of these. I figured the vote was going to be split on this one, probably more than any award. I think this was the one that I was looking at and saying there's a number of really good candidates. I think Mobley's versatility, the success the Cavs had, I don't know how much else the Cavaliers are going to get, and I think people play into that. I mean, it's so much team success. One of the great stories in the league this year, dominated the Eastern Conference from a record standpoint. They have to get rewarded for that. So if you have a guy like Evan Mobley and you feel like he's right in the mix with a couple other guys, I guess that could tilt your vote in that direction. There's no doubt he has a massive impact on them defensively. And actually defensively, he's been that way pretty much from the beginning of his career. The offense has taken a major leap forward. I think his overall profile as a player is just significantly greater now. And I think that helped him win this award because I think his defense has been on this level really from the beginning. His defense has always been ahead of his offense. His offense finally caught up. And as a result, I think people view him in a different light. And that's why I think he was able to win this award this year because he's not going to win. He's not going to be on an all-league team, I don't believe. I'd be very surprised if he did make one of those teams. So I think this is another way to reward a great year for Cleveland. Give him the nod if you think it's close. And I think most people did feel like it was close.
Well, that's what I like about this vote is it was pretty split. We don't get this anymore. We talked about this when we were doing our own picks, but there's sort of a hive mind that has taken over. I don't know if it's the internet age or what, where all of these votes are landslides or at least one or two guys. This one had five guys getting a pretty even distribution of votes. I mentioned Mobley, Daniels, Draymond. Lou Dort got 11. That was your pick. He got 11 first-place votes. And Amen Thompson had 9 first-place votes. I kind of like it that you had guards, wings, centers, and it was pretty evenly split. I think that is I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good thing. I think, look, for me, my voting with Dort, I just looked at it in looking at all these games this year and just talking to people. And I think for me, it was a general consensus. He's the guy that people want to play against the least. When he is given the assignment at, sort of that pit bull mentality, go take this guy and take him out of the game. Nobody does that better. Now, Mobley probably has more responsibilities as a help defender. Dort is more about this guy can hurt us or is hurting us. Now go shut that water off. And Dort's as good as there is in this league when you give him that kind of an assignment because he's strong. He fights over screens. He's got a lot of want-to in his game, takes a lot of pride in it. Mobley does some of that too, but it's more about the range that he has defensively as a help defender, right? I think that's kind of what the question was here. Which one are you going to lean toward? And I'm glad it was mixed up and split, because I think all of those guys had a real cause. Could make a real case for being defensive player of the year. All of the guys that got first place votes.
Yeah. And we move on to other big story here. Jimmy Butler, we got an update on him. He avoided the worst thing. There's no fracture, no structural damage there in that tailbone, but he does have a deep glute muscle contusion, according to Shams Charania. And he is questionable or maybe even doubtful for their game 3. But at least he avoided the worst. This doesn't sound like a thing that'll hold him out multiple games. We don't know exactly. But what do you make of that they avoided the worst of it, but that there is still a serious, injury or something that will at the very least hobble him a bit?
Yeah, I'm going to be really curious to see. Now, he's lucky he gets the extra day off. That's going to help. But, it was such a hard fall, all body weight on that. It came from a pretty, good distance off the floor, no ability to slow that fall down at all. First happened, and the way he walked to the locker room, as ginger as he was immediately, I was pretty concerned, man. Like, is this going to be something that potentially could keep him out of the series? Doesn't maybe sound like that now. And they're listing him as a game time decision, even for game 3, which is really surprising. Let's see what happens here and transpires over the next, 24 to 30 hours.
And then our last layup line here is that the Bucks have extended Jon Horst, their GM. This is, of course, coming into what will be a very interesting and perhaps even volatile offseason for the Bucks. I mean, there's a mirror of them to the Nuggets right now, where they have a great player, but it's very clear that they are far from contention, and they extend their GM. How should we look at this, in your opinion, this extension in a moment of uncertainty?
Well, I think, look, I guess what it comes down to is, even if you're considering it from an organizational standpoint, I think sometimes you think, is the alternative really the solution? You look at the success that they have had. There are teams that are better than them in the Eastern Conference. Now, people might think, hey, bring somebody else in and go figure out and solve this puzzle that you have around Giannis. What do we put around him to give us a chance to give that guy another chance to win a second title? Because he feels like one of those guys historically that should get more than one, because of the way he dominates games. It's a lot harder to figure that out than you think. Lillard was certainly a guy they went out and upgraded their roster with. And, it hasn't probably worked to the extent they wanted it to. And now we're trying to see if Damian Lillard has any ability to impact this series. I think they're going to lose this series. So you have a first-round loss. Most people would think, okay, major shakeups coming. And the Bucks wanted, I guess, to go the stable route. And I don't think necessarily that's the worst thing. I think he's a very competent executive. And I think that they were looking at the instability of it all probably as not the way to go, based on the fact that they have had a lot of regular season success. There are just teams that are better in the East.
It's going to be interesting because I do think Milwaukee and Denver mirror each other. Denver obviously went for a full reset, new coach, new GM to be hired this offseason. Milwaukee looks to be running it back. Both of them are in a pickle, man. I think. I mean, we don't have to eulogize either one of them just yet, but neither of them look like they are a team that is ready to contend for a title. But that's it for our layup lines. We talk about the games here, so we're going to get into the games now. And the Knicks beat the Pistons last night, 118 to 116. I had these late games, get home about 2 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't get to watch this one, from start to finish as I'm covering the Nuggets from studio. But when I just look at the box score here, I see an even distribution of shot attempts, even distribution of scoring. That was the big thing we talked about from game 2 for the Knicks. At least on paper legs, it looks like they adjusted and it was a more balanced approach. What did you see in this one?
Oh man, a lot. There was a lot in this game. There were a lot of runs, and every time that you thought the Pistons were going to, eliminate that deficit they were operating under and eventually take the lead and then secure the game, the Knicks would hit them with 2 big shots, and they'd get that thing right back up to 6-8. It felt that way most of the game, right from the beginning. Really, the Knicks took an 8-point lead right at the beginning of the game. Karl-Anthony Towns came out aggressive and really hot. He got criticized after game 2 for not attempting a shot in the fourth quarter of that game. He's been taking a lot of heat in the New York media. Came out super aggressive from the very, very beginning of the game, putting the ball on the floor, driving it, trail threes. He was looking for his shot. Big night for him, 31 points, 10 for 18. So he was sensational in this game. I just thought he played really strong. Exerted a lot of force, zero hesitation in his game. And it was more inclusive on the part of his teammates. to make sure that he was included from the beginning. So his start was great. Knicks, I thought, weathered that environment, which was bonkers, man. Like, I'm watching the game and I'm going, this is as close as I've seen this year to what you get at Madison Square Garden. It really, give the Pistons fans credit because they showed up in a big way. That energy was exploding through the TV set. And the Knicks weathered that beginning of the game. You don't know how you're going to start. Their offense was good. They built the lead. And from that point on, it was a matter of just weathering those runs that the Pistons were hitting them with. And every time the Pistons got it within, it felt like a bucket, a one-possession game, somebody for them missed a good look and the Knicks converted. That happened probably half a dozen times from the middle of the second quarter all the way to the middle of the fourth quarter. You felt like they were right there. And then Malik Beasley would get an open look, or Cade Cunningham would get an open look, or whoever, Tobias Harris, guys that have played really well for them, and they were not able to hit that big one to get it tied or to take the lead. And then the Knicks would come down and somebody would score. Brunson had some really big shots in the fourth quarter of this game. But for me, Adam, that's kind of the story of the game, was that the Knicks handled the environment well. They got off to a great start, and then they just made the plays that had to be made when you felt like this thing was going to tip in the other direction. The Knicks were the ones that made the big shots, and the Pistons missed some really good looks when they had to have them.
What did you see on the other side then from Cade Cunningham tonight? I see he shots 10 of 25, 24 and 11 was not a bad stat line, but what did you see from him?
I think if you went back and I showed you a quick rip of all 25 field goal attempts and the 15 that he missed, you're going to be like, wow, like 7 or 8 of those are like, he couldn't ask for more.
Really?
So I think Cade Cunningham was inches away from having a 35-point game. And he had, and some of it, none of them were bad misses. I mean, these were balls that all of them tracked right on the rim, in and out in some cases. He missed a couple of drives that he normally finishes. So it felt like he played great. And if you didn't look at the box score at all until after the game, I think you'd be surprised. 10 for 25, that's not what I just watched. But he had, I think, some bad luck. I mean, he was faced with a lot of defensive pressure, multiple bodies, but he was still getting to his spot as he always does because he plays with great patience and he's got great size. So he's able to get to his spots, get the shots he wants. He just, I think, had an unlucky night. Or that's probably, I would say, though, not the biggest reason in terms of if you picked a guy offensively that I thought was a major difference in the Pistons not winning the game. For me, I thought it was Malik Beasley. Beasley was 4 for 14. And I've told you, and that's why I voted for him for sixth man. He's so critical to their team with the firepower and the spark he gives them. And he just never was able to string together shots. He hit back-to-back threes late in the game. They were kind of inconsequential. But he had some looks at the times I'm talking about. Like, it felt like it's hanging in the balance. A 3 right here. And, man, this place is going to explode. The Knicks are going to call timeout, and maybe the Pistons can secure the game or take control of the game. And I felt like he was the guy more often than not that was not delivering. And so that to me is the bigger stat line than Cade's 10 for 25. I thought Cade Cunningham really played well. He just did not convert as many of those shots as he normally does.
It's rough. You are right about Beasley because they shot 43% as a team in this game. Everybody else shot well. But he is the bellwether because of what the minutes he plays and you know what they need from him. So 2 of 10, and it sounds like 0 of 8 before finishing off with the last couple. Tim Hardaway 7 of 12, by the way. What's repeatable here for the Knicks? I mean, is this something that you think they found an offensive rhythm now, or they found an identity, or is this? I mean, there's still a little bit of hot scoring from their key guys. So what do you think is repeatable?
Yeah, look, I think the Karl-Anthony Towns component. This is a very difficult matchup for them. Now, I think that you're going to probably see a little bit different coverage on him now, and pay a little bit more attention to him now that he's sort of gotten unleashed because I thought he was the best player on the floor offensively in this game. So now Detroit has to answer that. I really, though, think, Adam, when the Pistons look at that film today, they're going to be like, man, we actually played better than we thought we did. The Knicks offensively, I think, did more than the Pistons thought they were capable of. because their defense is so good. They pressure you so far out on the floor. They help on drives. They're probably Houston and Detroit as close as anything you'll see in this league to what Oklahoma City does defensively, with the speed, the commitment to getting in the driving lanes, right? Their quickness out to the 3-point line. I think those three teams more than any are the teams I look at that's like that model of athlete and the way that they connect to each other. And yet the Knicks were able to put up 118 points on them. I think that is where in game 4, you're going to see the Pistons have a much more concerted effort to try to contain them early in the game and not let certain guys get into their rhythm. Because I think that was a big part of the game. They let guys get comfortable early in the game and put up a number against them that I think they were surprised by. At home, the way that they played in New York, they didn't think that the Knicks were going to be able to get to 118. And I think that's where the adjustment has to come. I think the Pistons overall played pretty well in this game. There were just 15 possessions. If the Pistons could have those back offensively, I think that, they believe that it would have been a different outcome. So overall, nothing, you're not reinventing the wheel here going into game 4. Some of their guys have to shoot better. Cade Cunningham has to convert better, but Beasley has to be better offensively. And I think you'd have to do a better job on Karl-Anthony Towns. I think the Pistons feel like they can go back to New York 2-2.
Well, I mean, that's still on the table, obviously evening the series. So it sounds like they didn't lose, hold of the rope, so to speak. This was a close game. It wasn't probably as close as the score says, but it was a close game. And you brought up something that's going to be a theme, I think, especially for these young teams like Detroit. The playoffs, you can't have, I mean, you said 15 possessions, which is a lot. That's a pretty high number, but you can't even have 5 or 6. You have these little runs that you give up in the playoffs, that can be the margin. In the regular season, you have a bad 4-minute stretch. Well, the other team's likely to have a couple bad 2-minute stretches later on, so you can get it. But in the playoffs, that's not the case. So if you have a bad stretch, it's almost impossible to climb out of it. It sounds like that's what you saw from the Pistons last night. Bad execution and focus, maybe in too long and too extended of pockets.
Yeah, that's definitely what I saw. And, I just feel like they believe that overall they have outplayed the Knicks. If you take the totality of the 3 games, I think the Pistons feel like they have won the majority of those minutes. I think they feel really good about themselves right now. Now, look, when you get a split on the road, all right, in the first 2 games, I know that how important that game 3 is. You don't want to give that right back, right? You've now basically, they had stolen home court. It's
Right.
at the point now, right? So you come home from that. The Knicks have to win a road game to win the series. That's what you've done by winning game 2. So to give it right back, I know that's frustrating. It's demoralizing. And in some situations, you think to yourself, man, all right, that was their shot to win the series. I would think that about some series I've watched over the years. If this exact scenario played out, man, you get the split, you come home, and then you give it right back to a higher seeded team, you're not going to win another road game. I don't really feel I'm putting the Pistons to bed at all because of the way they played in New York. Is it going to be difficult to win another game in New York? Yeah, it is. That's going to be tough. But the way they have played against them, they certainly feel like they are absolutely going toe-to-toe with them and looking them in the eye. And they believe that ultimately they've outplayed them. And that's a good feeling to have going into game 4. So I'm very confident in the Pistons' response. I don't know if they'll win it ultimately in game 4. I'm very confident they're going to come out and make it much harder on the Knicks than they did last night.
I like it. I hope so. We need a couple of these series to go deep, and some of the ones we thought would maybe start to look like they won't. Is there any other thing you want to talk about from either side of this one before we move on?
Well, I just think that, look, Jalen Brunson, he was 9 for 20 in the game, but he got to the line a ton. He ended up with 30, and he had some really big plays late, man. And he got the Clutch Player of the Year award, and he was able to show why. I thought that the Pistons had to be better on some of his drives, particularly late in the game. One in particular, 3-point game. Cade Cunningham drives, minute and a half to go. He goes up, and there's Karl-Anthony Towns sort of goes vertical, but then he swipes down at the ball at the end. But the truth is, Cade Cunningham was already losing the basketball. Like he just lost the ball. No call. I thought it was the right no call. They kick it out to Brunson, and he goes the length of the court And like Dennis Schroeder was sort of in jog mode. And by the time he was like, oh my gosh, he's going 94 feet here. It was too late. He laid the ball in. And then his next drive, you got Jalen Duren in the corner on the strong side corner with Josh Hart. And Brunson just goes right by Schroeder. Schroeder's riding his hip. Duren stays in the corner. That it's little things like that. When you watch the film, JB Bickerstaff has to be like, look, we have to give up the strong side corner. I know that that's not something you normally do, but just think it through. You got Josh Hart in the corner, right? Low percentage 3-point shooter. Jalen Brunson driving the rim. You know he wants to try to finish this. You've got to jump off and make that pass. So like the details of it and how they defend Brunson are going to be very important. But I just wanted to give him a pat on the back because he came through in a big way in a very hostile environment. They lose that game. Think about what they're facing on Sunday. Down 2-1 on the road. The Pistons having an opportunity at that point to really take control of this series. That's what was sort of on the line in the last 6 minutes of this game, and I thought Brunson was spectacular.
Well, this young team in Detroit, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from it because this is the playoffs. You don't win all the games you feel you should. Things bounce the other way, and how you respond to it really matters. So now we get to see what their medal is made of here on Sunday. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we saw a huge collapse, one of the biggest in playoff history, as the Thunder come back on the Grizzlies. Ja Morant gets hurt. And then later on, Clippers Nuggets took a major shift in that series. We'll do that on the other side. First, Lucy Nicotine is 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free, available in pouches, gum, and our favorite, the Breakers. Breakers are pouches with a capsule of liquid flavor inside that helps saturate the pouch. Breakers are available in 4 milligrams and 8 milligrams, and they come in flavors like mint, berry, citrus, espresso, and more. Pouches go all the way up to 12 milligrams, and if you're not a pouch guy or gal, Lucy Gum is available in 2 milligram and 4 milligram or 6 milligram options. You can set yourself up with a subscription, have it delivered straight to your door so you don't make those weekly gas station trips. You could, and a whole bunch of different flavors and different styles for you to choose from. Level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/allnba and use the promo code ALLNBA to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use the code ALLNBA to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Also want to tell you about a new partner, Vivid Seats. The NBA playoffs are underway, so there's no better time to be in the arena experiencing that playoff intensity in person. If you're trying to catch your team live this postseason, let us tell you about our friends at Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the best place to get your tickets for any live event. They have the best selection of games and seats, and every purchase is backed by their 100% buyer guarantee. Plus, Vivid Seats is the only ticket marketplace that rewards you for every purchase. So download the Vivid Seats app and start earning rewards towards free tickets. New Vivid Seats users who use the promo code ALLNBA30 will receive $30 off their first purchase of $300 or more. Once again, click the link in the show notes right below. Go to vividseats.com or download the Vivid Seats app and use the promo code ALLNBA30 for $30 off your first purchase of $300 or more. When it comes to playoff basketball, being there is all that matters, so experience it live with Vivid Seats. All right, we are back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. The Thunder come back on the Grizzlies 114-108. There was a huge lead, 67-40, but then Ja Morant got hurt. And he got hurt off of another play. We did this yesterday. We were talking about, was it dirty, was it not? This one, Lou Dort, 2-on-1 break. He's the one guy back. He challenges the ball. Ball swings to Ja Morant, who's going up for a thunder dunk. He's going up for a huge dunk. And it looked like Dort slips a little bit, kind of reaches his hand out to try to stop the dunk, and he ends up tumbling Ja Morant. Just real quick to start, because this is going to texture it. What did you make of that play?
Again, man, I don't think in any way, shape, or form it was intentional. Ja Morant, it's interesting. As I said it earlier in the year, his last injury came on a fall when he was trying to explode to the rim, and he missed time. Hurt his shoulder, his wrist. And I felt like over the years, he's had a number of those, and he started to change his approach a little bit by design. I've even talked to Taylor Jenkins about it when I had Memphis earlier this year. And he said, definitely, man, the guy's trying to think about long-term availability because he doesn't weigh a whole lot. He takes off like crazy. He's fearless. He'll try to dunk on anybody. He tries to give you those wow moments, right? Particularly when they're at home. And he's taken too many hits, man. It doesn't take much to hit a guy that weighs like that in the air, very much contact at all, before you send him flying, where he's out of control and he can't land properly. I don't personally feel like Lou Dort meant to do it. It looked like he sort of slipped and stumbled on the play at the exact time. Ja Morant was literally trying to jump over him, it looked like, and finish that thing with authority. And again, it doesn't take much to lose control in the air if you're a guy that is built like Ja Morant. And it's very, very unfortunate. They were going to win this game if Ja Morant doesn't get hurt. There's no question in my mind. I was shocked by the extent to which they were dominating OKC, honestly. They would have gone on to win the game if Ja Morant stayed on the floor. Once he didn't, their half-court execution became a real problem for Memphis. And you even heard, their head coach allude to it after the game, that everything just changed at that point with their ability to run anything. Once OKC smelled that this was possible, that's when they really ratcheted up their defensive pressure, and they were very impressive with what they did in the second half of this game. But if Ja doesn't go down, we're sitting here at 2-1 right now. Not that I'd feel differently about the series,
right?
But at the same time, listen, if you're Memphis, it gives your crowd a different environment going into game 4. Your entire team a different confidence level if you're 2-1 about to play another home game as opposed to being down 3-0. The Thunder sensed they had an opportunity to go get this thing once they got it to like 15, which was still in the third quarter. Okay. Yeah. They felt like, you know what? We might be able to actually not just make it close. We can actually get this done. And it was their defense at their best level. That's what you saw over the last 18 minutes of the game. And it made it impossible for Memphis to execute.
This is something I don't think people realize about great defense in the playoffs is if you take away a major pressure point, a great defense's job gets so much easier because you have talented guys and now you can overload on things. You can pack the paint or extend out on the perimeter or what have you. And a team like the Thunder, they have the personnel to do that even when you're fully healthy, but you take Ja Morant out of the system. It's like, okay, they lost a major pressure point. So now our job got easier and we can be more extended and more aggressive. They had 31 points in the second half. They had 37 in the second quarter, 40 in the first. So their offense was not just like stifled. It was completely shut off. 13 points in a fourth quarter in a playoff game. That does not happen very often. And yet it almost happened 2 times in a row.
Yeah, no, completely. Listen, I was there for game 1 this series. Right?
Your mic just got unplugged there, legs. Sounds like just a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hit it. Sorry. So sensitive.
It's so sensitive.
You guys got me?
There you go. Now you're back.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Look, this is a mismatch. It is. I mean, any way you slice it, it's a mismatch. Now, so going into game 3, I really thought it was a mission for Oklahoma City. That like they wanted every night to send a message. And that's why I thought that had a great chance to be a sweep, even going into the series. And then I saw the first game and I'm like, yeah, this is probably going to be a sweep. I was as surprised as anybody at what happened in this game. And what Memphis was able to do. But you take somebody that can collapse your defense off the floor the way that Ja can, because he's singularly unique in their offense with his quickness and not being able to contain the ball at certain places because he'll just escape that. That all changed without him. And Scotty Pippen Jr. played great. I mean, yeah, he played out of his mind. He shot the ball
better
than anybody thought he could. But it's still, without Ja, Oklahoma City kind of knew that they could, make it all the way back. And now they've put Memphis on the verge of, going home for the summer.
What did Oklahoma City do that impressed you in this one? I mean, I maybe outside of the norm, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 10 of 26. He hasn't shot the ball well in this playoffs through 3 games. So what is it that they did well other than obviously clamping up in the second half?
Well, I think a couple things. I think, first of all, Alex Caruso was incredible in this game. If you go back and just take a look at his impact, you're rarely going to see a guy have the impact that Alex Caruso did in this game without being a high volume scorer. It was unbelievable the number of plays he was involved in. So he was like leading their defense. But then, Chet Holmgren, who had a very quiet first half, you didn't even notice he was on the floor in the first half of this game. His 3-point shooting was as big a reason as any of why they were able to completely erase the gap. So I thought he got into a comfort zone. Oklahoma City repeatedly was finding the right guy that was open the entire second half of the game. And that's the way they've played all year. I didn't feel like they played that way as much in the first half. Once their defense started making them believe they had a chance, their offense got better, sharper, crisper, making the extra pass. Chet Holmgren stepped into a number of threes that, he misses any of those, and who knows, because they were so important at the time he hit those to keep the momentum going. So I thought he was sensational in this game as well. It's funny. We're 3 games in. I still don't feel like Memphis has gotten the best punch from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's really interesting that they're winning these games, and he really hasn't been as good as he was all regular season. So that's coming. The fact that they're up 3-0, and I don't feel like that's really been the case yet, I think that's a good sign for OKC overall.
Yeah. What do you make of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's shooting? I mean, obviously they're winning these games, and they're winning them. This one a big comeback, but everything else has been super comfortable. But 10 of 26, I mean, kind of below 50% in all of them. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, look, he had a lot of high volume shot attempt games over the last, 6 weeks of the season where he didn't shoot 50% too. He's a very efficient player overall, but I'm not sure what to make of it other than he's due. He's due for one of those games where he doesn't miss a mid-range shot. Like, he's going to have a game similar to what Kawhi had against Denver in game 2, where like every mid-range jumper he gets goes in. He's due. Might not be, maybe it's not in this series. Maybe they won't even need it to get through this series 4-0. They're going to get, a good amount of rest, I believe, where they're going to be sitting home again, which is not a good sign for whoever plays them out of that 4-5 matchup, because the last time Oklahoma City had a lot of rest, you saw what happened in game 1 of this series. But yeah, I'm waiting for it like everybody else. He's a more efficient player than he's shown in this series. He's missing shots that he normally makes. I don't think you can make too much of it. It's a matter of time where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander finds that rhythm.
Yeah, this up 3 games to 0. Now you're just playing for pride. Nobody comes back from 3 down to 0. So we'll see what Memphis has. I will say it is impressive of them to even perform the way that the Ja Morant thing threw this all out of whack, but it is impressive for them to get blown out in historic fashion in game 1, get controlled in game 2, and then come home and at one point be up 27, I think was their biggest lead, something like that. Just to be able to put on that performance shows you something that they're made of there, some kind of backbone. And then, of course, the injury threw everything out. Anything else from this game or this series that you want to mention?
No, I just, I think it's unfortunate for Ja Morant, and it's just like, it just makes you realize how fragile everything is there in Memphis. And and look, whenever this series ends, whether it's in 4 or 5 games, I don't think it's going beyond 5, probably going to be 4. It's just, you look at Memphis going forward, man, I think that they are an organization that's going to be in a lot of flux, trying to figure out what they want to do going forward. Ja Morant's missed a lot of games over the last 4 or 5 seasons. And now they also have a decision to make on the head coach. I mean, if they get swept and they blow a 27-point lead, there's another game in this series where they were down 57 points at one point. That's not exactly, a great audition, for Tuamas Isola. So they've got to figure out their coaching situation. They got to figure out roster construction. And is Ja Morant ever going to be able to give you like that long, sustained run of health all the way through the regular season and the postseason? I think all of that comes into question again with what happened to him last night. And it's terrible. You hate to see it because he's such a fun guy to watch when he's playing well. So talented, so entertaining. And I think there's a good chance we don't see him the rest of the series.
Well, let's move on to the last game and the worst one from the night. The Clippers absolutely blow the doors off of Denver, 117-83. They did it behind a 23-2 run at the end of the first. Denver actually had a good first 7 minutes or so of this game where they were getting some good cuts, some good movement. They weren't getting a ton of stops, but they did have like a 6-point lead early and then a 23-2 haymaker. And Legs, I'm going to kind of lead you in on this because, obviously this is the game I'm locked into and this is the team I cover closest. They did this. The Clippers did this in game 2 as well, where they brought Zubac out at the end of the first quarter and then bring him in at the second quarter because Denver's rhythm is to play Yoke the whole first quarter and then to sit him. And they're making the gamble that Denver cannot beat them at the end of those minutes when Ben Simmons is guarding Jokic. They're a little bit smaller, a little switchy. Denver brings in their bench players. They lose some of their shooting, bringing in Peyton Watson and Jalen Pickett, Russell Westbrook. So they're saying we can pack the paint against Jokic in those minutes and then bring Zubac, a big-bodied in against Denver, Aaron Gordon at center. We can do that. And it worked. because Denver really fell apart at the end of the first quarter. And in the start of the second quarter, it was just an enormous Clippers run and a Clippers haymaker. And Denver didn't recover at all. So we have a lot to talk about, but that first part of it, to me, the 23-2 run was really what happened in this game. Everything else just played out after that. But what did you see?
Yeah, I mean, that's the game in a nutshell. That's where it pretty much ended right there. And one of the problems for Denver, as we know, as we've talked about, they shoot a good percentage. They don't take enough threes or make enough threes or have enough firepower from the 3-point line. You fall down 15, 20 points. That's going to be really, really difficult. They're minus 33 from the 3-point line in this game to the Clippers. Right. I mean, how are you supposed to recover from that? So when you fall behind, and on the road even harder, when you fall behind and you're going to not chip away by stringing together a few threes at some point, makes it really, really difficult. I thought the 3-point shooting was exposed in this game. I thought some other major factors in this game. Michael Porter Jr. clearly is ineffective with this shoulder injury. He was not himself. It's a lot of things he's not going to be able to do on the court with that particular injury. It was obviously bothering him. And I saw frustration on the part of Jokic. I think that, he was out there and he wasn't a complete player, and that was going to make it really tough on them. Russell Westbrook now dealing with something physically. He only played 9 minutes in this game, I believe.
Yeah, he
9
got hurt
minutes
in the second quarter, didn't return.
And he's been critical for this team down the stretch and even through the first couple of games, as well as he's played. Denver's in a really tough spot right now, going into down 2-1, game 4 on the road, and potentially even more shorthanded. So my first question for you is, what's going on with Porter and Westbrook? What do you expect? You're there. What are they saying? What do you think is going to happen here going forward with their rotation?
So Michael Porter had that injury at the end of game 2, kind of that terrible mistake, and then goes down, isn't able to get up. And it really was the moment of game 2 that flipped the game. He comes back and tries to play this one, and I think a valiant effort, playing through injury, but he was not himself. So 2 of 9 from the field. He was a minus 25 in the game. But he said after the game, I was not helping my team. I was hurting it. And I don't know if I should even try to play. Like, I want to help my team, but helping my team in game 4 might be not playing. And he might be right. The problem, Legs, is they have 2 shooters in their entire rotation, Michael Porter and Jamal Murray. They already struggle. When I talk about the Clippers' defensive game plan is, hey, we can afford to sit Zubats and to sit Kawhi at the end of the first quarter because Denver has to bring in a non-shooting lineup, and that's just easy to guard even if you're compromised. Well, now you take out Michael Porter. You don't have to wait for that stint. That's going to be the entire game. Denver will not have more than one shooter on the court at any given moment. So losing him, even though he was completely ineffective in this game, is huge. And then Russell Westbrook, he obviously is a hot or cold, help you or hurt you guy. You kind of flip a coin every night, but at least he's in the rotation as their 6th man. If you lose Porter and you lose Russell Westbrook, Denver's depth was their problem. Peyton Watson is likely starting in this game. By the way, he was really rough, really terrible last night as well, but he's probably starting. And your first man off the bench is Jalen Pickett, who's only been playing for about 20 games total. That would be Denver's 5th and 6th guy in game 4 if it comes to it. So I think it's definitely DEFCON 1 if you're Denver.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, you don't put anything past Nikola Jokic and what the guy's capable of, but if you're that shorthanded where Michael Porter Jr., potentially doesn't play, or now the Clippers know that that's going through his head and he's so limited, you can guard him differently. Westbrook, if he's hobbled and limited, it's already, the shooting's already a problem. You're going to make sure you're not giving him anything easy. You don't put anything past Jokic, but at the same time, you just look at what's available against this level defense and what you're going to have to do to relieve some pressure off of him. I think it's going to be really tough for Denver. Look, I liked the Clippers going into the series regardless, like both teams fully healthy. I thought it was going to be, and I said it to you the other day, I thought we were going to get 6 or 7 games that were decided in the last 6 minutes. I really did. I thought they was going to be that even. This one surprised me a little bit, and I don't know why it would be, because there's been a number of blowouts in the playoffs so far. A lot of games are not close in the fourth quarter. This was another one. So right now, I think it's just a matter of, let's see who's available for Denver. And you're going to need probably an absolute epic game out of Jokic, like max aggressiveness as a scorer in game 4. You might have to see Jokic take 25, 30 shots. And listen, if you go full commit, if you're the Clippers, on blitzing him and getting the ball out of his hand at all costs, that's going to be tough to do. if they do that, is there enough offense support around him to give yourself a chance to win? But I think Jokic understands the moment. You're going to see him know that he's got to dial up a 40-point game in game 4, potentially for them to steal this and get an opportunity to get home court back.
I think you're right that the game 4 is the game he's going to have to be inefficient, but just try to force his way through, because he's been efficient so far. 9 of 14 in this game, 23, 13, and 13. But to your point, it wasn't effective. It's not like it's not putting pressure on them in large part because they know the 14 field goal attempts, that's the number. The assists and everything else, he got 7 of them or 8 of them in the first quarter. So that's only 5 the rest of the way. And they were able to just dare guys to shoot and shut off the cutting lanes. What I worry about with Denver is this: 2 things. One, we talked about there not being a blowout in the series, or potentially not, because of the low 3-point shooting. Denver made the strategic decision to try to shut down Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. 6 of 14 from Harden, 20 points. That's on paper a bad game for him. Kawhi Leonard, 7 of 17, 21 points on paper. That's a bad game, but it came at a cost. And that cost was open shots for the other guys. Maybe you're hoping they miss. They shoot 46%. And everybody got off in this game. All of the guys were shooting. Norman Powell had 3. Chris Dunn had 2. Batum had 4, who, by the way, is having a phenomenal series. Derek Jones goes 2 of 3. So Denver made that decision, and I think they're going to have to go back. I would bet, if I were a betting man, I would bet on Kawhi points over and Harden points over in game 4, because I think Denver's going to say, we can't double cover and let other guys go. We have to live with the volume scoring from those guys and hope we can turn this game back into a slog.
Well, I agree. I think that was clearly, more successful formula in Denver. And I think you're probably right. They're going to go back to that. How many tough mid-range shots can you make, Kawhi? You're going to have to make a lot, because we're not going to sit there and overcommit and give guys clean looks. So I do think that's, got to be part of their defensive strategy going forward. Look, they had 80 points amongst their best 4 players. They had a great balance amongst their starters, right? All 4 of their top guys played well in this game. And with the emergence of Kawhi Leonard here, these last couple of months, you look at their starting lineup and you're going, it's practically as good as anybody's in the league. Kawhi Leonard, Harden, the year Norman Powell's had, plus Zubac. Kawhi has kind of changed the entire dynamic and way that we view this team. I think you're right. I think you're going to have to force Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, and they're probably capable of it. Don't get me wrong. They easily could get a 60-point combined game in game 4. They're capable, but I don't think you can make the game as easy for their supporting cast as it looked last night.
Yeah, that's 100% it. The last note here for Denver, they make the coaching change with 3 games to go, and they get a jolt, as everybody does, or not everybody, but most teams do. You make the coaching change, there's an emotional coming together. Denver did not build in the muscles that they needed all year to be on a string defensively and to do different things. And I think once that high wears off, where you're just flying around and making plays, it becomes about execution. In Denver, adjusting their defensive scheme in game 3, saying, okay, we're going to trap, but we're going to have to rotate more. The rotations were not there. They just were not prepared, because all year they had not been building towards this moment where they know how to defend different styles. So their rotations were horrible in this game. They're giving up open threes that they shouldn't have given. But here's the thing, Legs. I talked after game 1 about how the Nuggets showed me a toughness I had not seen all year. And that was part of it. I thought in game 2 they showed a toughness. It wasn't pretty, but it was tough. This one, they got hit with that 23-2 run. The game was over. And Denver looked like the game was over. And to be honest with you, the Clippers almost had mercy. Rather than run up the score on them, they just ran the clock out for an entire half. The 3rd and 4th quarter were unwatchable because the Clippers walked the ball up, played with it for 20 seconds, and then scored. And so Denver just didn't have fight in that second half in a way that, to me, that's what's more concerning than anything. Is Denver, we knew they were behind the 8 ball in terms of talent and connection, execution, those types of things. But in this game, they kind of let go of the rope in the second half in a way that I thought, I don't think Denver has any more belief in themselves.
Well, I don't know if it's gone completely. They lost it last night. I don't know if it's gone completely going into game 4 or 4. Look, it's 2-1. You got to win a road game. That's what it comes down to now. And I think the key for me is you can't let them get beyond arm's length in the first half of the game. You just can't, because you do not have the 3-point capacity to make up those kind of deficits. If this game is played the way the first 2 games were in Denver, I think Denver's got a great shot. You go into the 4th quarter and you're in a 1-possession game and you've got Jokic and you've got like some of that experience that those guys can draw on from being in those spots in the past. I think Denver is going to have a great shot to win the game. You can't let them come out and get into that comfort zone and get a double-digit lead on you in the first half, because you become far too predictable offensively and you don't have the personnel to cut into that kind of lead. So that's what I'm looking for Denver. I think they're going to fight, man. They're going to come out, they're going to fight, they're going to throw punches early in the game. I really believe that. This is a championship team with a 3-time MVP on it. I don't think you're going to see them accept their fate if it doesn't go well at the beginning of the game. They're going to fight. The question is, do they have enough? I agree. Yeah. Clippers are a really good team. They've got a lot of talent, and they're playing great. So it's not going to be easy, but Denver has shown you like what they can do if the game stays tight, what Denver's capable of with their execution around Jokic to give them a great chance to win. That's the key. Stay in the game. You'll have a shot to win it in the fourth quarter, because I think they can execute well around Jokic.
And I think you're right. They definitely quit in this game, but it doesn't mean that they won't have it in game 4. It'll be a real gut check time for them, because they are so limited, and you just want to see a team, even if it's not promising, you want to see them fight to the bitter end. They didn't do that in the second half of game 3, but game 4 is another opportunity. All right, let's go to the weekend real quick and preview tonight's games. You're on the ground for Celtics Magic. Celtics are 5.5-point favorites. What is it you're looking for here tonight?
Well, first of all, we're still waiting to hear about Jason Tatum. It's sounding like we're not going to see Tatum. I felt like if the Magic couldn't win a game without Tatum up in Boston, I don't know how you're going to beat them. But here's what I think. Their defense is always going to be good enough to keep them in the game. You know, their offense is a major problem. They just do not have shooting around their top 2 guys. But I do think their defense will be cranked to an even higher level in front of their home crowd. If you don't have Tatum, I think the Magic feel like, they understand. You have to win this game. I think you're going to get their best effort. Regardless, their defense is going to show up. I think Wagner and Banchero have played well enough to give them a chance. You're going to have some of these role players step up and make shots around them. That's really what the whole game is going to come down to. Can you get guys like Karl-Anthony and Anthony Black, to chip in and help make some threes around their best 2 players, because their defense will give them a chance. The key is we're waiting to hear about Tatum, and it doesn't sound great right now, which is a little bit concerning, because you wonder, is this something that could potentially affect him the rest of the postseason? I mean, once you overflex your wrist, man, and you get that in that joint, you feel it all the time. And if it just makes them a little less efficient, it makes them be more beatable. So let's see what happens with Tatum today. What announcement we get on him, if he's going to play, and then do the Magic have the ability for one night at least, let their defense carry the day, make enough plays offensively around their stars to get back in this series and make game 4 very interesting.
Pacers Bucks should also be good. The Bucks are favored tonight. I mean, this is one we need to see them get back into the series. They are favored as it shifts back to Milwaukee. What do you think about that, and what do you want to see in this game?
Yeah, again, so I don't know. Have they given us status update on Lillard? Is he playing tonight?
I think so. I don't actually know. James, can you check this out for us while we wrap up this segment?
Because that's going to be, he's reemerging here, and it's an interesting dynamic to the series. But I personally just feel like the Pacers, I think, are a better team. Milwaukee, that crowd is going to be crazy. Their playoff atmosphere is pretty awesome. They've got Giannis. Would not be shocked whatsoever if the Bucks win this game. I think ultimately Indiana's going to win the series, but who knows game to game. The playoffs have been just very unpredictable to this point on a night-to-night basis. That's why you got to go bigger picture for the series, and I just think Indiana's a better team.
And then the last one, Lakers at Wolves. This is the one I'm most excited for, just because, we've had 2 pretty dominant performances in either direction. So now you go back to Minnesota. Wolves are favored by 2.5. What are you looking for here?
Yeah, look, I think it's critical if Minnesota wants to win this series. Unlike what I felt about the Pistons Knicks, because I felt like the Pistons felt like they outplayed them most of the 2 games in New York. So they lost. I think Detroit very much firmly in this series. I think for you playing against a team like the Lakers with that level of talent, this is really important, and Minnesota wins this first home game. You lose this one, I think that's going to be tough for them to recover from. But I think you're right. This is the game of the night. I mean, this Minnesota played so well down the stretch, and what they did in game 1 was so impressive. The Lakers ratcheted up their defensive energy big time in game 2. let's see what the home crowd does for Minnesota and try to at least take the early control of the series.
I think that one's going to be contentious tonight, man, because both teams know what this game means, this pivot point game. So that one to me, I'm locked in. Let us know, by the way, what you think, which games you're locked into. Also want to let you know that Mark Campbell, our very own, has another video out, this time on Tyrese Haliburton. He's doing these great individual player deep dives that have been really cool. I think you're going to enjoy them throughout the season. So make them part of your workflow. If you're watching this show, right when it's over, head on over and watch that one. It's like a 10-minute video. It's really cool. We got some super chats, James. I think we got a big one here. Free TV gives a 50-piece here. A 50-piece. If it was any other player, fine. Bring up Ja's injury history. But please acknowledge that Dort has a history of slipping or just so happening to be the player making physical contact with a player as he gets injured. Ingram, PG, Harden, and now Ja. I'll be honest, Legs, I think there is something to this. I do not think that play was reckless or bad, like when I watch it. But there is something too. There are some players that seem to hurt a lot of guys, and Dort might be one of them for whatever reason.
Well, look, here's all I'm going to do is I'm going to go play by play. I just could take, that's all you can do is take it one play at a time. Here's what I think happened on the play. So it's a 2-on-1. Dort's running back. He's thinking about going and making a play. If I can't remember who was it dropped it off to Ja. Do you remember who was the player? I don't either. But Dort, you could see, was trying to time it up because he was going to go up and contest that shot at the rim if that player shot it. Well, now, so his back is to Ja Morant, who's trailing the play down the middle of the floor. As when that ball gets dropped off to him, Dort turns, and what it looked like to me was he realized he was going to turn and just jump, and he realized he was not going to be able to get there in time. He was in a bad spot, so he tried to like abort his jump, and he slipped. And Ja Morant tried to go over the top of him, and he fell. So I just take it on a case-by-case basis. I know what you're saying, and there are guys that have gotten those reputations in the league, and we can go through different players historically, and I can tell you my opinion on if I think it's, man, that's amazingly coincidental that this guy seems to be involved in a lot of these. I personally don't feel that way about Dort. I certainly don't feel that way about that particular play. I just don't, and I certainly, as you know, I didn't feel that way about Amen Thompson on Jimmy Butler either, and neither did the Golden State Warriors. And I think that should carry a lot more weight than just people that are out there watching or fans of the team. I just look at the team reaction, you know, and I'm not even sure that Memphis feels that way either. And I think even the guys calling the game said they didn't think it was intentional in any way. I know we want to go there right away, especially if you're a fan of the Grizzlies, but man, I just think he got himself in a bad spot. He turned, he decided at the last second to not jump, and he slipped as a result as he was trying to make that decision. And Ja Morant, if Ja Morant just like tries to glide by him and lay it in, he's not going to get hurt. He tried to go over the top of him.
Yeah.
And that's really what ultimately led to the injury.
I think guys like Lou Dort, and there have been other guys like him in the past, one, they're very physical, so they're always going to be around moments where there's physicality, which not every player is, right? Not every player is going to be there. And then he goes for some players, it's like, do I have a better than 50% chance of getting a block or making a play here or less? Lou Dort will go for anything above a 10% chance. And that was a play right there that had like a 10% chance of working out, maybe 5%. A lot of players won't go for it. He did. And unfortunately, that's what happened. So again, I don't think dirty, but I do think his style of play lends itself to, you got to be careful around him, especially on plays like that. All right. What else we have? Ulysses Ventura says Nuggets roster is so disappointing. Agreed. I'm just happy Jokic got his ring. Feels like they're too handicapped to make changes next year. Legs, you the man. Not even a question, just kind of a statement.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. You've got Jokic. This is going to be a very important offseason for the Nuggets in a lot of ways. You're looking at coaching situation first, but you're also looking at, man, the support around Jokic and what the rest of that roster looks like. They've got to get better, man. They've got to get more depth first and foremost. More guys you trust. It's not an easy fix, but I mean, that's clearly what they have to identify. But it is amazing how we go from, they won a ring in a not too distant past to this roster sucks. It's like, I mean, it's like, okay, man, like this was a team, and I know they had some key guys that aren't there anymore. I understand that, but the main core guys are still there, and it's clearly now at the point it's got to be addressed this summer. And what are they going to do to improve the margins around Jokic?
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I worry with Denver. My big fear is just that the vibe is gone. And we see this. Teams expire. They hit a wall where things just don't feel right anymore. That even includes guys like Jamal Murray, not bad players, but just the magic isn't there between Jokic and Murray the way we had seen it in years past. And hopefully they rekindle it in game 4. They're going to need it. Denver's losing role players like Fly. So Jokic and Murray now are going to have to push through. But give the Clippers credit, man. They have a lot of versatility, a lot of defenders, and 2 really good offensive players on the other end to carry them. That does it today, guys, and that does it for this week. First week of the playoffs in the books now. It's been a great one. We have some great games over the weekend. Legs is going to be on the call. Are you on a game on Sunday as well, or just Friday?
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I'm up in Detroit on Sunday for Knicks Pistons, so I'm calling that game. I can't wait to see that environment, man. That's one of the biggest games of the postseason to this point, the way that series has played out.
So you won't hear from me over the weekend, but you will hear from Legs tonight. Magic, Celtics, Sunday, Detroit, and New York. Should be a great one. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button for us. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you on Monday.
Silly like the mayor.